Well, folks, he's back. No, not Jesus, although the way some people talk about him, you'd think it was a second coming. I'm talking about Donald J. Trump, the man who proved that even in America, a reality TV star can become president. And he's not going away quietly. He's back in the spotlight, holding rallies, spewing conspiracy theories, and generally reminding everyone that he exists. The big question is, will he run for president again in 2024? His supporters are practically begging him to. They show up to his rallies decked out in red, white, and blue, ready to cheer on their hero. His critics, on the other hand, are pulling their hair out. They thought they'd seen the last of him, but like a bad penny, he's turned up again. Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. One of Trump's favorite ways to stay relevant is by holding rallies. These aren't your typical political gatherings, mind you. They're more like a cross between a rock concert and a tent revival, with a healthy dose of grievance politics thrown in. At these rallies, Trump repeats his greatest hits, like claiming the 2020 election was stolen from him. Now, there's no evidence to support this claim, but that doesn't seem to matter to his supporters. They eat it up, chanting "Stop the Steal," and waving their signs with fervor. Trump knows how to tap into people's anger and fear, making them feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And that's what makes Trump so dangerous. Let's talk about the big lie. It's the term used to describe Trump's relentless, baseless claims that the 2020 election was rigged against him. Trump, with his signature flair for the dramatic, has spun a web of conspiracy theories, alleging widespread voter fraud, rigged voting machines, and secret cabals working against him. He paints himself as the victim, the rightful winner robbed of his victory. These claims, amplified by a chorus of right-wing media outlets and online echo chambers, have real-world consequences. They erode trust in democratic institutions, making people question the very foundation of their government. Imagine going to a restaurant, ordering a delicious meal, and then the manager accuses you of stealing the silverware. Even if you're proven innocent, a seed of doubt has been planted. That's what Trump's doing to American democracy. One of the more outlandish claims in Trump's arsenal is the alleged malfunctioning of voting machines. He points to isolated glitches, blown out of proportion, as evidence of a grand conspiracy to steal the election. He's particularly fond of attacking Dominion voting systems, accusing them of flipping votes in favor of Biden. This isn't just about voting machines or one company, it's about sowing distrust in the entire electoral process. If people believe that their vote doesn't count, why bother participating in the system at all? Trump's attacks on the integrity of the election are also thinly veiled attacks on the Democratic Party. He paints them as power-hungry cheaters, hell-bent on destroying America. This rhetoric further divides the country, making it harder to find common ground and address the very real problems facing the nation. The consequences of Trump's persistent lies about the election are already being felt. A significant portion of the American public now questions the legitimacy of Biden's presidency. This erosion of trust extends beyond the presidency, seeping into every level of government. It fuels a climate of cynicism and apathy, making it harder to address critical issues like climate change. It fuels a climate of cynicism and apathy, making it harder to address critical issues like healthcare. It fuels a climate of cynicism and apathy, making it harder to address critical issues like economic inequality. The constant barrage of misinformation weakens the very core of the system. The danger here is that if people lose faith in their government, they become more susceptible to extremism and authoritarianism. Now let's talk about Trump and social media, a match made in, well, let's just say it wasn't heaven. Before he was banned from Twitter, he used it like a weaponized vuvuzela, blasting out a cacophony of insults, conspiracy theories, and self-aggrandizement. Each tweet was like a grenade lobbed into the public sphere, designed to provoke, distract, and dominate the news cycle. He'd attack his opponents, often in deeply personal and offensive terms, calling them names that would make a sailor blush. He'd spread misinformation like it was going out of style, leaving fact-checkers scrambling to keep up. Trump understood the power of social media to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and speak directly to his base. He knew how to craft messages that would go viral, tapping into people's anger, fear, and resentment. Think of it like this. Imagine a grumpy old man yelling at pigeons in the park. Trump figured out how to make those pigeons multiply and attack anyone who dared to question his authority. Trump's social media presence wasn't just about getting attention, it was about sowing division. He deliberately framed issues in a way that pitted Americans against each other, exploiting existing fault lines around race, religion, and political ideology. He demonized immigrants, portraying them as criminals and a threat to American values. He fueled racial tensions, defending white supremacists, and using dog whistle language to appeal to his base. He even attacked his own intelligence agencies, calling them the deep state, and accusing them of trying to undermine his presidency. The more divided the country became, the stronger his grip on power seemed to grow. He weaponized outrage, turning it into a political tool that he wielded with ruthless efficiency. One of the most concerning aspects of Trump's social media use was its role in creating and reinforcing echo chambers. An echo chamber is like a digital hall of mirrors, where people are only exposed to information that confirms their existing beliefs, no matter how inaccurate or misleading. Trump's supporters, bombarded with his tweets and the pronouncements of right-wing media outlets, existed in a world where the 2020 election was stolen, vaccines were dangerous, and climate change was a hoax. Any information that challenged these beliefs was dismissed as fake news or part of a larger conspiracy. This echo chamber effect had a profound impact on American politics. It fueled political polarization, making it harder for people with different views to find common ground. It also made it easier for misinformation and disinformation to spread, undermining trust in traditional media and institutions. Ah, legal woes. For most of us, the thought of a lawsuit sends shivers down our spines. It's stressful, expensive, and generally something you'd cross the street to avoid. Donald Trump, however, seems to treat lawsuits like a hobby, something to dabble in between rounds of golf and tweeting. His entire career, both in business and politics, has been shadowed by legal battles. He's been sued for everything from breach of contract to fraud to defamation. And the lawsuits haven't stopped since he left the White House. He's facing investigations into his business practices, his role in the January 6th insurrection, and his attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Trump's legal troubles aren't a recent phenomenon, they're practically woven into the tapestry of his career. Long before he entered politics, he was known in New York City as a ruthless businessman, someone who wouldn't hesitate to sue anyone who got in his way. There were lawsuits over his casinos, his hotels, his real estate dealings. He was sued for allegedly discriminating against black tenants, for allegedly defrauding students at his now defunct Trump University, even for allegedly stiffing a contractor who had done work on one of his golf courses. This history of legal entanglements followed him into the White House, where his administration was plagued by scandals, investigations, and a revolving door of lawyers and advisors. It was chaos, it was confusing, and it was frankly exhausting to keep up with. For years, Trump seemed to have a knack for escaping serious consequences for his actions. He was dubbed Teflon Don, a nickname that reflected his ability to emerge from scandals and lawsuits seemingly unscathed. But the question remains, is Trump's luck finally running out? The legal challenges he's facing now are arguably the most serious of his career. The stakes are higher, the potential consequences more severe. The investigations into his business dealings could result in criminal charges, something that seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. The January 6th committee is building a case that Trump played a key role in inciting the insurrection, which could lead to further legal trouble. Only time will tell whether he'll once again manage to slip through the cracks of the justice system, or if he'll finally be held accountable for his actions. Okay, imagine for a second that America is a giant reality show. We've got drama, we've got intrigue, and we've got a cast of characters that wouldn't be out of place in a David Lynch film. And for 4 long seasons, the world has watched, mouths agape, as the Trump show unfolded. Now you'd think that a country founded on principles of democracy, freedom, and the rule of law would be a hit with the international community. But under Trump, let's just say the reviews haven't been kind. From his withdrawal from international agreements to his cozying up to dictators, Trump's actions on the world stage have left many wondering if America had lost the plot. It's like watching your usually reliable friend show up to a party in a stained bathrobe, yelling at the guests and trying to steal the silverware. The world is watching, America. One of the hallmarks of Trump's foreign policy, if you can even call it that, was his disdain for traditional alliances. He seemed to view the world as a giant real estate deal, where every relationship was transactional, every negotiation a zero-sum game. He alienated long-standing allies like Canada and Germany, slapping tariffs on their goods and questioning their commitment to NATO. He cozied up to authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, praising their strength and seeming indifferent to their human rights abuses. These strained relationships have real-world consequences. They weaken America's standing in the world, making it harder to build coalitions and address global challenges like climate change and terrorism. America was once the land of opportunity, a beacon of democracy. Under Trump, that image took a hit. His rhetoric and policies tarnished the American brand. Actions like the Muslim travel ban and withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement sent a clear message. The erosion of America's soft power has real consequences. Trump's influence is marked by the unwavering loyalty of his base. They call themselves the MAGA movement, seeing Trump as a cultural icon. They love his brashness and disregard for political correctness. This loyalty is fueled by economic anxiety, cultural resentment, and distrust of the establishment. Trump tapped into these sentiments like a skilled bartender mixing a potent cocktail. In the Trumpian universe, facts are malleable, truth is subjective, and reality itself is open to interpretation. It's a world where up is down, black is white, and 2 + 2 equals whatever Trump says it equals. This disregard for truth and his penchant for spreading misinformation have become defining features of his political brand. He'll make outlandish claims, often contradicted by his own previous statements or easily debunked by fact-checkers, yet his supporters remain unfazed. This phenomenon, often referred to as alternative facts or post-truth politics, has eroded trust in traditional sources of information and created a fertile ground for conspiracy theories to flourish. It's like trying to have a rational conversation with someone who's convinced the moon landing was faked. You're operating in different realities. This weaponization of misinformation poses a grave threat to democracy. When people can't agree on basic facts, it becomes impossible to have meaningful debates about policy or to hold leaders accountable. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of quicksand. Sooner or later, the whole thing is going to collapse. The Trump era has exposed deep divisions within American society. We're increasingly polarized along political, cultural, and ideological lines. It's like we're living in two different countries. This polarization is fueled by economic inequality, social media, and hyper-partisan media. It's a vicious cycle, where each side retreats further into its own bubble. This division threatens the future of American democracy. When people are so entrenched in their beliefs, finding common ground becomes impossible. Imagine solving a jigsaw puzzle where the pieces are constantly shifting. That's the challenge facing American democracy today. Can we bridge these divides? Can we rebuild trust in our institutions and each other? The answer remains uncertain. So here we are, folks. The Trump show may be on hiatus, but its aftershocks are still shaking American democracy. It's like that feeling after a roller coaster ride, a mix of nausea and dizziness. Trump's legacy is a messy stew of tax cuts, Supreme Court appointments, and division. His most enduring impact is normalizing a toxic blend of grievance and division. In the age of social media, outrage is a currency, and facts are optional. He's emboldened politicians to prioritize loyalty over competence and demonize opponents. So, where do we go from here? How do we begin to repair the damage, to bridge the divides, to reclaim a shared sense of reality? It's a daunting task, like trying to assemble a jigsaw puzzle that's been soaked in gasoline and set on fire. It starts with rejecting the politics of division and fear. It means demanding better from our leaders, holding them accountable for their words and actions, and refusing to reward those who profit from peddling lies and conspiracy theories. It means supporting a free and independent press, investing in education, and fostering civil discourse. It means recognizing that we may disagree on policy, but we must agree on a shared set of facts, on the fundamental principles of democracy and the rule of law. It won't be easy, folks. Rebuilding trust takes time, effort, and a willingness to listen to those with whom we disagree. But the alternative, a future where truth is a casualty and democracy is a hollow shell, is simply too grim to contemplate.